Welcome everybody to Gen Talks this week. We have a really interesting set of guests. I mean, I just want to first off thank Joanna, because this is a product of how often you've been sort of an ally of what we do here and what we do with Machine Cinema, that when we saw you and your team's amazing moment at Sundance, I was just texting him like, hey, can we talk to you guys? So we're very excited to also learn how people like Driggin, and hopefully Maddie joins us a little bit later. A lot of familiar faces
Julia.
on the team. Taryn, that you pulled together. Julia, who'll join us in a little bit. Really exciting to see members of our Machine Cinema community, specifically even here in LA, just getting that attention, being out and, sort of in places like Sundance doing their thing. So this is just, feels like a homecoming to me, and just sort of watching people sort of be a part of what we've been setting off to do. But ultimately all inspired by what I think you sort of instilled in your moment of filmmaking inspiration, Taryn. I'll sort of, for anybody that is meeting you for the first time, you're a filmmaker, you're a writer, you're a futurist, you're working at the intersection of storytelling, science, and emerging tech, with a focus on protopias, which is an awesome word. And I want to learn about that, how this film speaks to that, how the power of story can help society imagine better, more resilient futures. And before MythOS, your directing credits also included the fantasy features Wicked and Torn, and the sci-fi short Live, released by Gunpowder and Sky. You had a film that was created with the ASU Center for Science and Imagination called The Assignment. So just really, really cool to see how this creative inspiration of yours just keeps finding its way into new media. As a feature, you write Feature Film Fridays, a weekly newsletter on entertainment and emerging technology, and you're the author of Protopia, A New Horizon for Screenwriters, and a futurist handbook for Hollywood in the Fourth Act. And you co-founded Siren, spelt with a C, SCI, runs a female collective advancing STEM storytelling in media and climate narratives. I'm just going to try to introduce the rest of your team briefly, but maybe it happens organically. Obviously, Maddie Hung, who will hopefully join us soon, also a member of our community, but an AI technologist, creative. She served in a lot of ways as an art director on this film. Driggin, and actually, I just got a note that you're not recording, so I hope that's not an issue. But in case it's all fine, Driggin, I've met you through our mutual friend Suki, and you're a traditional editor, and in a lot of ways have been finding your own journey entering the creative space of AI creativity. And Julia, another member of our creative community here in Machine Cinema LA, a creative technologist. She has her own community called Femme Creatives, an in-person community dedicated to empowering women through creative leadership. And obviously Joanna Popper, and I wouldn't even say last but not least, but just Joanna Popper. We are always thrilled to have you with us, and all the amazing things that you've done as a media executive, a board advisor. You're an award-winning producer at the intersection of storytelling, technology, and impact. And you've held very senior roles at places like CAA, NBC Universal, and HP. In a lot of ways, I think this project sort of signals how you're sort of in this space, in a lot of ways, seeing opportunities like stories that deserve support and attention, and also deserve your passion as well. So thank you all for being with us today. I guess I'll start off with you, Taryn, and maybe just as a brief preamble, I want to, maybe for anybody that didn't see the film, I'm going to give us a chance to watch it here. It's a short film, and that can kick us off, and we can just get some popcorn out. But maybe just briefly introduce yourself, and maybe this film as you might at a film festival, introducing yourself. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this. I'm Taryn. I've been in the entertainment space for a long time now, 20 years. Been in front of the camera, behind the camera, always interested in sort of emerging technologies and media. I love science fiction. I just saw Project Hail Mary last night, and I'm still buzzing from it. It's so wonderful. And I'm really obsessed with story as a mechanism to create infrastructure around society to lead us into sort of better futures, imagining better futures, because I really see how much Hollywood has put dystopian, apocalyptic content out there for so long, and I feel like we need better stories to imagine our futures through. And so this is sort of a love letter to that. This is called MythOS, but it's MythOS, like a new operating system. And it dives into sort of the fractured world that we live in, and sort of where we need to go to sort of reimagine the power of collective storytelling. So this is sort of the first iteration of that experiment that I'm working on. And I made it with the support of Adobe and Adobe Firefly and their generative AI tools, but I also had live actors in it. So we had a live green screen day where I had a full cast and crew, plus my AI artists there. And we had a really abbreviated production schedule because we showcased this at Sundance with Adobe. So it was a really incredible experience across the board. And I got to work with these incredible people that Joanna was really seminal in helping to assemble. And so I hope you enjoy this piece, and then we can talk about sort of the workflow and more of the creative inspiration behind it after.
It looks like Julia Harris is on as well, if we could bring her into the panelist area. Fred, you're on mute.
Yeah, I see her. She's like, "I'm on." And to note, Maddie is she's tied up on work right now because London is only 7 hours ahead right now as opposed to 8. So she might try to join at the end of it. But Julia is sort of the amazing representation of our AI team today.
Okay. Well, while we're screening, I'll see if we can send her the right link. All right, let's watch this and enjoy it. Thanks, everybody.
Film stories are lost to us. They are buried in the coils and cells and switches of our silicon.
I know you.
We turned our backs on them, allowed them to be swallowed.
Now I recognize you. It's been a while. Reality, it's off, fractured. It's breaking down.
The machines, they've messed up compression. The old systems that used to run things can't sync.
What fixes it?
Gotta do a full reboot.
How? With what?
These are the original storytellers who are forgotten.
What is that?
It's the oldest form of magic.
Must be remembered, must be remembered.
Your ride is waiting.
It's the stories that matter, that become matter. The universe's greatest energy.
We can rewrite them together. A new mythic operating system.
So cool. I love watching the credits of these AI hybrid films. They're like their own interesting sort of new world of job descriptions, and I love even the whale thing at the CETI at the end. So much to take in there. But congratulations, Taryn. I mean, obviously, I want to get to know you as a creator as well. I mean, obviously, how did this medium meet you, where you and your idea were? Let's just start there. I mean, maybe tapping into the whole protopia of it all, and how did you get real whale recordings? Let's talk about all those fun things.
Um, yes, well, the whale recordings is a fun story because basically because of my sirens work. So about 12 years ago, I wrote this blog post about this impassioned blog post about believing that we needed better scientific literacy because of the coming shifts that AI, biotech, and climate change were going to bring. And people were like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "No, really, this stuff is going to happen." We need to have scientific literacy, and the best Trojan horse for that is entertainment. And so that's why I started the Sirens group. But it put me in touch with these incredible circles, especially in LA, of scientists, and these sort of crossover companies like the Science and Entertainment Exchange and the Lear Center. And I just got to meet all the most amazingly brilliant people because of this. And one of them, through a friend who initially started Sirens with me, is the founder, David Gruber, of the SETI Institute, so CETI. And I was at an event in October where they premiered this like new research that they had just done on sperm whales and how the codas of sperm whales had symbolic references to vowel patterns and human language. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And I just love to bring sort of influences from science, from the real world into my projects. And so it became part of this that I just started sketching out sort of as a longer script form idea. And then when Adobe reached out to me to do something for Sundance, this became a part of it. And then it became the framing mechanism that we sort of decided upon closer into the release of it. So it just, who are storytellers that aren't, human centric was, I think, a really interesting theme to do. But yeah, protopia is, again, as I said before, it's a term that was coined by Kevin Kelly, the futurist who was a co-founder of Wired, and it's sort of this middle ground between utopia and dystopia. It's incrementally better futures where it's sort of human caused betterment that is approachable and reachable and envisionable, as opposed to this sort of perfect idea of utopia, which is also just one person's ideal, not the collective, and is not diverse. And so I really dug into this idea and thought that it was just really beautiful and something we needed to see in more storytelling. So started doing deep dives into this idea sort of in 2020.
Super cool, and I think I could probably just pick your brain on the STEM and storytelling all day long. I mean, what about just like the journey as a storyteller? I mean, where would you put this experience and comfort level with AI filmmaking on your sort of palette? And obviously, here you are at a very high level, participating with an amazing group.
Oh.
How did the choice to make this with AI come about, and even the hybrid versus fully generated? What kind of choices did you guys make there?
Yeah, I started thinking about AI, a long time ago, just in writing science fiction. It was always sort of omnipresent there. I wrote and directed my first short film in 2018. I'd written it in 2017, and it had a really large AI element in it. Now it was full live action with VFX, but it looked at sort of the future of work and employment and how we would all might have to be live casters because our jobs were taken by AI. So it was more of a dystopian Black Mirror take on it, which I've kind of pivoted from because I don't think that's helpful. But it's still an interesting commentary, and I really enjoy the film. So in 2023, when I worked with ASU, I, of course, had been tracking all the generative AI developments. And we endeavored to sort of do this short film that was in support of their climate fiction almanac that they were putting out. And I had sort of pitched this really creative, surreal world, because I like surreal worlds, to sort of capture the themes sort of collective storytelling and better futures. And I pitched them using AI because we had no budget. And I was like, okay, it's okay. I'm going to find somebody, on the cheap to like help me with this. And no, AI artists were already like substantially paid. And I was like, I guess I'm gonna have to do this myself. And so being sensitive about sort of the IP infringements of some of the models, I turned to Adobe and just used their image generator. And then I think I'm trying to remember where I animated. I mean, they were very rudimentary and like I sort of leaned into the specific style of it. But that's when I first dipped my toe into AI. And then because I saw it being such an encroaching disruption and benefit to Hollywood, I started doing my Feature Film Fridays weekly newsletter, which just had me stay up to date with this. And this was kind of in parallel of directing these two fantasy movies, action fantasy romance movies that I had been offered after the short film. So it just kind of
So
was all
cool.
coming in tandem.
And I mean, in terms of like, I mean, I think whether it's some of us in film school, like, all right, I need a DP and I need a editor and I need like you sort of immediately build a team in your head as we sort of look at and Julia, I'm glad the link worked. Awesome seeing you. As you built your team, like what was that like for you I'm assuming you sort of had some producing duties on this and really having to figure out how to really get this to happen. I mean, what was that like for you? Because I think that's the wave that I'm really excited to see this year is that we're now starting to see collaborative environments. We're seeing more of like what some of us did the ETC project last year with Eric Weaver and his team. I think, what was it like for you to design your team here? And again, work with your resources that were also time and money, you know?
Yeah, it was a very short time period. So I'm just really grateful that the pieces fell into play, mostly because of Joanna's introductions. But yes, I've produced all the things I've done before. I've worn a producer hat in one way or another. The two short films I produced myself, and so I'm pretty resourceful, having been in the business for a long time. I also did a lot of new media producing, so early web series like Celebrate the Web and The Streamies. I had a sci-fi apocalyptic web series in there called After Judgment that I was a producer and an actor in. And we were sort of in that early community. So really formed, it was kind of like the new independent community. And so formed a lot of connections that way that I still am able to like reach out to, which is wonderful. But because, it was such a small time crunch and a lot of people are still very in that community, anti-AI. So I knew I could find the live action crew, like to do the green screen. I'd done green screen before, but sort of making sure that I had the proper talent to work the AI elements, which include, all the backdrops of the composited work of the live actors. Their backdrops, are AI generated. And so those needed to be done before we even got to set. So Joanna thankfully introduced me to this like wonderful community that's, the machine cinema, the ETC community. And we did this this relay of meetings and interviews in like a really short period of time to assemble the team. And we were also doing it over Christmas time. And so it was an extra pressure to get people to be able to commit. And I'm just grateful that I had the team I did.
Maybe just to start to open it up to the team, and I'll start putting people like Julia on the spot. Would love you to reintroduce yourself for people that haven't met you yet, and obviously maybe some version of the interview you did with Taryn when she decided to work with you. But also, if you can segue in, you've been in this space as long as anybody now. What were some learnings on this hybrid environment? Maybe watching this new type of film set come together for you, Julia.
Hi, guys. I'm Julia Harris. I'm a creative technologist and a videographer. I work with seven-figure influencers. And I've been in the Gen AI space the past year and a half. I've had the pleasure of working on 5 Gen AI films. This is my most recent. Working on this film was very unique because of the live action hybrid twist that we had, and working with such a strong director and writer, Taryn. She had such a vision. We had Maddie Hong, who was our creative director for the Gen AI section of the film, who I think is the best Gen AI artist in the world. We were very lucky to have her on the team, and also recruit so many other people that are in this group message or in this chat as well. Like Brogan and Jake and Jagger and everybody who jumped onto the project. It was super cool that we got to generate things like Taryn was saying and then have them be on the background of the green screen on set. So we would actually be able to see them in the recording as we did it live, which made it very powerful. It's a very interesting workflow. And then also just being able to be so nimble as, the story shifted and being able to just generate more. Maddie did something very unique. She worked with a Blender artist to create the scenes. 3D, and then we were generating off of stills that she captured in these 3D worlds, and that allowed us to really streamline multiple AI artists at the same time. As we recruited more people onto the team, we could easily just put them into this scene and generate from it, which it was so cool.
And not to put people on the spot, if you have any of those BTS kind of workflows, I think I think a lot of us would love to nerd out and think about what was the successful arc of the hybrid process. If you happen to have it, we can go there, or we can just talk about it. And it might even be a way to throw between Julie and Drigan. I mean, Drigan, if you can introduce yourself, curious about your background as an editor, but I think I'm going to guess that you played a bit of a VFX participant as well. And as we came up with these novel ways that, not the least of which, I'll just say headline, you did this in 2 months, like soup to nuts. I think if I get
much
it,
less.
wait, more or less.
A month.
So I'm just saying that's your own observation of this technology. Drigan, if you can introduce yourself, but I'd love to jump in on like, how did we pull off this hybrid model and how did you work with the team?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Drigan. I'm mostly an editor. I work across bunch of different mediums. I work on Rick Rubin's podcast, and I'm co-writing a Verite doc, and going to a hackathon for 12 Labs this weekend, trying to look at so process AI. I'm more interested in the process AI space and how it's affecting editing with using softwares like Quickture. But I've also recently worked with Obsidian Studios on a project for Imagine. With a lot of generative AI. So something that's been emerging for me is this new like AI editor role, or whatever that is, and how that fits into the process. But I don't want to take up too much time because I could nerd out on that. But essentially, coming back to our process, it was how do we do this quickly? And so how do you keep a team aligned on and focused, even with Taryn's like really strong, clear vision? And so we used an automatic sort of approach where we generated first the automatic in and cut that together to make sure we were staying aligned with pacing and with the story. And something that I've on a couple of these projects now, we've realized that in a lot of ways we're just doing what Walt Disney did in the 1930s, but just much faster, right? So it's still like keyframes, animatic, making it move. It's still that process, but sped up. So I guess, yeah, the point of the animatic was to rein in the possibility space of what we could do, and make sure that, as we're generating, we're watching the 180 axis and keeping everything cohesive and consistent. But then that created sort of an iterative loop where we're then going back and forth between sort of a premiere sequence and Maddie's work, sort of supervising a massive, web of Firefly canvases to sort of get Taryn what she needs. And Taryn's hopping back and forth between working with me and working with Maddie. Taryn, was that it? I don't know. What do you remember?
I know we were in a blur when we came out of it. We're like, what did we do? Yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's anything additive I can say, but no, that pretty much covers it. Except, but also you were having to communicate with our VFX department, and so we didn't have a media manager, a data manager. We were using Lucid, and so it certainly is something that if we were to redo something like this or next iteration, having sort of a more robust organizational database for that. But yeah, then we were like, we have a great VFX supervisor, Dan Schmidt, who's over at Engine Room, who was actually my VFX producer on the first feature that I did. And so it was wonderful for him to come on this project because he's very AI curious and wanted just to get his hands dirty and everything. And so Durgan was also having to, connect with him as well as, so usually it's just editorials dealing with VFX, but now it's VFX and AI that's kind of looping over each other, like running in tandem and parallel. So it was, we had to have a quantum brain going on and sort of having multiple parallel universes going at once.
And maybe if you can position yourself in that kind of self-created storm, doing this all in 2 weeks, I sometimes relate to this, and I think Drigan too, that there's sort of a documentary instinct where we're kind of finding the story in post. Sometimes we're a very prescriptive filmmaker that just had a perfect storyboard and we really just stuck to it. What was your and I'm always interested in people's different takeaway of, like, now that we're doing this with AI as this sort of wild card, that sometimes even some new tool shows up while we're in production. Where did that affect you as a storyteller when you would discover something you wanted to do with the story? That like, oh, did you have moments like that where because of this sort of fluid nature that seems like you're describing, that was actually a virtue of the story you got to tell?
Yes, absolutely. There's twofold to that. One is sort of while we were making it in this kind of holiday bubble when we had no sort of external feedback because Adobe was closed. And so we were basically in the script, basically, I had like shot listed everything. We had the animatic. Because of our time crunch, we knew we couldn't deviate and really didn't want to deviate from it. And so that was our focus. Though, finding things in the moment, just like when you're on set and you're at a location and you're like, oh, this is a really interesting shot. And that it informs something in the scene and the scene shifts a little bit, though you always have to stay sort of true to the story. Like, what are you telling, as long as it's in service to that? The same went for the AI generations, because you always want to be like, oh, that's cool. And sometimes that's cool is like, but it doesn't work within the story world. And other times it's like, it does. How could this lend itself to something else? I think it's hard to work using generative AI tools if you're not open to the happy accidents. I love those happy accidents. They're just really exciting, especially when it's part of a collaboration where you just keep building it on each other and you're like, yes, 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 yes. And then the sad thing is at the end of the day, we're like, oh, I can't use that. Damn, but maybe next project. So there
I
was
think
that. Certainly, it impacted the story slightly. But then we also, due to the collaborative nature with our partner on this, had to shift the story to best serve the Sundance event. And so we had to make some substantial changes very close to the event. And we wouldn't have been able to do that as traditional filmmakers. We wouldn't have been able to go and reshoot. We wouldn't have been able to go into an ADR room and like re-record the actors. But we had already, I had made sure that the contracts allowed us to utilize, the actors' voices and repurpose them if we needed to change a line or something. And also, we created character sheets to create digital doubles of them so we could create new scenes. Now, any close-up you see of our actors, that is them in camera. For the wide shots or the, high overheads, those are fully generated images. So, they're not perfect, but they got to a place where we certainly were able to feel like there was a flow and it didn't bump you out, of the movie. So, we had to pivot and generate and change some story very, very quickly. And we would never have been able to do that, if we weren't in our Firefly boards.
No, it's hard not to take in that this technology allows for an immediacy, a speed of decision making, and opportunity that's going to be native to the space, and even just the challenge you set for yourself of making something this fast, I think speaks to new timeline. It's very interesting to hear you talk about this idea of the digital doubles. I mean, it's mostly a lightning rod, like in terms of people's immediate reactions. But I think it's clearly the way you've incorporated it is ethical, and there's releases. I'm not questioning that. But again, just to put it in the context of the new way that I get to make my movie, whether it's I get to go get scenes that I didn't have time with my actor to get, or to get angles. What was that like for you? And maybe you're starting to open it up. And Julia, I see you nodding your head. Like, how is that opportunity for people that are working in the hybrid environment, an interesting twist of AI filmmaking?
Julie, you want to take this? Or I can start. You can finish because I know you have a mouth.
Okay.
um, it's funny because coming from the independent background, I always think big stories contain spaces. You have to think so efficiently. And with the new AI tools, you're like, Oh, maybe I don't have to think so, restricted when it comes to locations and set pieces and such. So, that was one interesting thing where I'm like, oh, I can do everything. But no, you can't do everything. It's not as easy as it seems. So it was just sort of that by fire trial of like, what again, serving the story. What is the story? What is the experience that I want the audience to have? What is the most innovative and unique and sticky visual and way that I can film this? And can AI help me with that? So that was really sort of where I came from here. I wasn't expecting it to be a panacea or a magic button. We all know it's not a magic button, or sometimes it's a slot pull, for what you're going to get, but it's sort of shifting away from that as we get more control over the camera. But I had such a good team around me that was open to experimenting with everything, but also came with their own huge experience level that would be like, no, we can and can't do that. And so I didn't know what I didn't know. I mean, I'm very savvy about AI from a macro perspective, but not from an on the ground perspective all the time because I'm not in the tools all the time. So Joanna, surrounded me with some people who were fantastic.
Julia, what was you were nodding before? Having digital twins that are also human twins at your at your disposal. What was that like?
Yeah, I think it's both exhilarating and frustrating being a pioneer in a space because you're live finding out restrictions on all the new tools, and the tools are constantly coming out and refining. And for this project, we were using specifically Adobe's tools, which Maddie and I feel like the rest of the team, this was a new frontier for us. So you're learning the technology, you're using the technology for the digital twin, specifically creating something like a character sheet is just where we started. And then we were able to come in and also we shot a good amount on both the green screen and for performance and just really understanding what was needed, like specifically how close the character should be in order to get a better facial performance. And the faraway shots are definitely easier to do for Gen AI. The thing that struggles with the most is face. We're just so familiar with the face, the nuances of eyes, in the mouth, but for any kind of background shot or even, Taryn looking at it with Drigan's amazing animatic and saying, you know what, like, how about we do this? They were also able to tag team live as the AI team is generating and developing what the best process is with the tools that we have. Very fun.
Super interesting. I mean, I'm almost curious, like, what was it like telling the actors that, no, it's okay. We have extra footage of you that hasn't been shot yet. Like, like, did they ever have a reaction to the notion? I mean, I know they signed it away and it's all good, but what was their journey as performers?
I went through it with them very specifically beforehand for them to even sign on because most actors have sort of gotten a singular narrative out there that AI is going to take your job. So I wanted to take them through this whole process and where they would, where their performances would be central to this story, and how sort of their image would be central sort of to the background part of, the secondary part of the story and the story world. So I think they were good walking on set, and then it was just like a traditional green screen stage. And so, both of them I think had already worked on a green screen stage. But then the cool thing was being able to show them the backgrounds that had already been generated and showing them the actual rough compositing of them on the switcher on the monitor so they could really imagine what world they were in and what they were acting in. And that's not always the case for traditional green screen. If you're shooting on the volume, yes, you already have the background. You're already, shooting in camera with that. But usually for green screen, you don't. Unless it's a plate that's already been captured, in a live shot, previously. So yeah, I think there was trepidation and then there was excitement and then there was trepidation and then there was excitement. But I think generally, they were seeing the possibility of more opportunities to act in different ways and in different projects too. Because, acting on a big sci-fi project, it's hard to get. Those are expensive to get made. And, smaller filmmakers with less budgets, they can do crazy big sci-fi actions now. And so it just opens the door, I think, for more actors to do more different types of roles.
Well, it's so interesting. I just want to chime in on that. Like, I think I always think about whether it's behind the scenes of most films, just the trust that a filmmaker puts on set with their actors, and that's what gives performances, and that's what lets them be vulnerable. It's interesting. There's this new trust layer of like, it's okay if I put words in your mouth or create scenes that like it's a new journey for you and the trust that you build with your actors. And I think that's a great to maybe even think that that's still the constant of the role of the filmmakers to create that creative space.
I think it bears
I
saying
wanna
that
ask you,
Taryn
I was
was
gonna,
Taryn was an actor for many years herself, and so she understands it deeply from the point of view of an actor, and comes at it from that deep understanding of what would be the benefits to them, what would be where are some of the risks, and how those can be mitigated as well. So I think that that's an important thing, that she has the actor sensibility during even in those conversations.
sure.
Thanks.
I mean, question to you, Joanna. I was about to. I mean, in so far as that you seem to be a real connector as an executive producer or producer in your kind of job description would be that. What was it like imagining Taryn's journey and the story she wanted to tell and the opportunity that Adobe is presenting? And as you thought about the different types of talents in the machine cinema community, or just your instincts as a producer, what were you looking for? Whether it's skills or maybe just sensibilities, how did you seize your opportunity on this team?
Well, I would say what was really exciting to me was first working with Taryn and helping her bring her vision to life, hearing from her all of these all of these inspiring stories, all of these inspiring visions about protopias, bringing something positive and beneficial to the world, as well as telling something that really hasn't been seen all that much. So many stories are looking at it very differently. And I was also excited about working with her, given her background coming from a more traditional area and then jumping in here. I had previously worked on another Adobe project with King Wallonius for Adobe Max, BBL Jersey. I think it's entered the BBL Jerseyverse. We also worked with actors and AI. So it was a second project that I worked on, a bit of a hybrid. That project was a little bit different, where we shot with live actors, but then we used style transfer because they showed up as characters. So I was excited about the prospect of taking the hybrid tools even further, with having actors doing their performance with all of the emotion and the facial expressions and the intonation and everything that actors bring at a very different level than AI does today, and then to kind of bring the best of all of the worlds. So the best of the worlds of the actors, but then the best of the world of having a whale, which we don't have to go chase a whale down and do it. And I think the whales probably prefer that. I think the whales probably prefer just to like have their journey in the ocean and not have people trying to capture their journey, and then have the beautiful backgrounds. So all of that was, and then of course having a project at Sundance, especially this year, which was the last dance. So the last time in Park City. So it was a really incredibly special year at Sundance. It was really special to be able to have this project there with this team, showcase at the Adobe House. And then as far as thinking about the team, Taryn and I met, we talked a bit about the vision of who would be, sort of the sensibility, the skill set, what were the roles that we needed to fill, and then who those what the skill sets would be. And then I reached out to a whole bunch of people in this community, for lead AI artists, editors. I think we already had VFX. We did a couple other meetings of VFX, just to like be certain that we were going to go the direction we were going in. We met with colorists, we met with sound, and many of the people are people that I had either worked with on other projects or had seen around the community or had been recommend. Like Driggin and I had a conversation around Will's project, and it didn't work out at that time. But then I called him again the second time, and it worked out this time. So, which is also probably a good lesson, right? To just like have those conversations, even if the project doesn't work out on one time. Just keep those conversations going, and there's so many great opportunities to work with people on the team. And then once we brought in Maddie continued to assemble a team. And some of the people were people that we had talked to earlier, and some of the people were people that Maddie brought in herself. And, Maddie is not available today on this call because she's on another awesome job in London, which I think speaks to the amazing work that she does. Which also I actually referred her into. So that's also fun. But yeah, it's like, when you're doing great work and doing it in a way that makes it positive for the team to work with you, you continue to get referred in for job after job.
Right. So takeaway number one is, everybody, it's good to know Joanna. But which I agree with, by the way. But I also think, like, and maybe this is obvious, but I think so many people in this space are just grinding learning skills and capabilities and getting good at sometimes VFX things that they suddenly are capable. It's great. The skills are awesome. But I think what I'm hearing, what I also know about Maddie and her film Emergence, and Driggin, you as a documentary person, Julia, the films you've made, is at some point the sensibilities matter, the things that you made films about. And it's, again, just encouraging people to still, like, remember that this medium's an opportunity to put yourself out there. And obviously that's what generates these moments of synergy with opportunities. I mean, obviously, everybody, if we have questions in the chat, and that there is a way for you to jump up on stage with us, please do. I think
people are asking about the whales. People are asking about.
Let's talk about whale, and it's not people in casinos,
or crypto whales.
They can fund us though. The
we'll get
whales,
some crypto
casinos,
whales are
I'm
welcome.
happy with that.
Crypto whales are very welcome, apparently. I mean, talk about SETI, and it's not the SETI. They're not looking for aliens. It's SETI with a C. Tell us about CETI.
Yeah, and also I think just on that, because I think the beginning of the film got clipped off. There was a little bit of confusion of what was pinned. So maybe, Taryn, if you want to talk about that, but also explain some of the notes we had at the beginning of the film, because I don't think people got to see them.
That they had released in November that the language of the sperm whale codas had reminiscence vowels and patterns of the English language. So, and they keep teasing that they're going to start, and they're also utilizing AI to decode these codas. And it was part and parcel of it was retiming the way that these codas were recorded. So it was about sort of shifting your thoughts about time, which I think is really interesting. And from a storytelling perspective, from like Protopia's expanding our notion of time, of like long-term thinking, long-term storytelling, 7-generational thinking. I think that these are elements that would be really beautiful to weave back into sort of more mainstream storytelling. So just sort of using that as a conduit. And Maddie and the team and Jagger worked tirelessly on the whale, as did Julia. But we started with an Adobe stock asset. So we built our whale off of that. And then we ended up finding one that was great, that we iterated from. But almost every AI model likes to turn any kind of a whale into a humpback whale, because it basically speaks to the training data, that all the training data has been of humpback whales and not really of sperm whales. So luckily, Adobe's Firefly was trained on a lot of like National Geographic type video of sperm whales. So we were able to maintain consistency, but it was hard. It was really hard, Julia. And, I just want to point back too about sort of the actor sensibility and caring about actors. And all of us, Julia, Driggin, and myself, we've all been performers. And, I know I can speak to my deep love and respect for acting. And, I've been on set as an actor where I was not respected for my craft or for what I brought to the set. And I think that we need to start doing that again, because our human storytellers are ancient. Like what's coded in human storytelling is ancient. It like catalyzed myth, which gave us, a framework to understand uncertainty and change and events bigger than us. And we need that more than ever now. So, I want to champion this.
There's a lot to unpack there. I mean, obviously, we're sort of approaching the end of the hour.
Sorry.
If other people have questions, no. I'm just opening space for other people to come up. I think there were some technical questions that if we want to pull up any BTS questions,
There's a
please
question
do.
about editing specifically for Driggin.
I think Driggin, you were very like, oh, nobody wants to hear about editing. I think people are like, please do tell. Tell us about AI editing.
I could do a quick little riff there. I've been on a long creative journey as an actor, theater director. I spent a year trying to write screenplays, and I failed miserably. And I learned that my creativity is like interpretive, not generative. So for me, I go into like overwhelming paralysis at the blank page or the blank canvas. So I became an editor because I have the constraints of the footage that I'm finding an interpretive path through. And what I'm actually as my work, it was interesting because I had two projects at Sundance. One was a narrative edit that was in competition, and another was this one. And so when I was working on the narrative edit, I'm constrained by what they got on the day. They shot in 3 days. Those performances are the performances. One of the actors, really only gave it, there was like one good take, and we had to find our path through, and that affected the other. It was a closed set, and with a closed set of possibilities, right? And with AI, it's an infinite set. It's an infinite set of possibilities, because the truth is, when Maddie submits the shots for the sequence and we're putting them in, there's always the option to kick it back, right? There's always the option. The set is still running over in Firefly or Weavy so. For me, I'm actually struggling to find, as someone who needs a closed possibility space, I get a little overwhelmed with the possibilities as an AI editor, because there is always this option to keep shooting, right? So, to keep generating. So I don't know if it's something I'm trying to figure out. And, I don't, but that's the big difference between, editing an AI project and editing, a traditional narrative or a traditional documentary for me at the moment.
Drigan, you could also jump in there, where it was so great with trusting you, was, as it was like the shots maybe didn't all feel cohesive in the way they needed to feel when they were strung together for the scene. And you could be like, we're missing this one shot. And being the artist yourself, you can go in and you generated, or you move the
Yeah.
camera. Like, you were part of that generative process as well, not just like dialing us up and being like, hi, I need an extra shot. You're like, hey, I made this extra shot to make this sequence work. What do you think?
Yeah, there's
And
this. I think we're learning it's like a different sport. It's a different team sport, and we're trying to bring the old, like, hierarchy of the film set to. There has to be a Taryn at the helm, but like there is also I guess what Taryn's talking about is like, we have Maddie as the lead. She's absolutely the lead visual person, but there's what Taryn's describing is like, there's a point at which it's easier for me to just do a V1 of something real quick to make the edit work, go into the tools, prompt it myself, make it, just to keep the edit going, and then sort of get Maddie to look at my work and be like, does she want to redo it? You know what I mean? Like, so I was sort of functioning as like a sort of a grunt on the AI art team as well. But because we're trying to figure out, again, it just feels like a different sport that I'm playing
it's
compared
like,
to.
it's kind of like a middle node, and then we're all spokes, but we're all connected as well, as opposed to this like top-down hierarchy where it's like, yes, there has to be the central vision, and whoever's containing that needs to be able to communicate it to every single person in whatever way works best for them. But it's like the hierarchy really gets flattened, which I'm all for.
Yeah. Also, I think it speaks to the advantage of being multi-hyphenates and of people learning so many different skills, instead of just being deep in one thing. The more you can, especially in small teams like this, moving quickly over the holidays, as we said, the more that people can jump in with different aspects, the better it is for the overall team.
I think the question that I think a lot of people go through, I'm seeing even like TV production companies go, that they take on okay, we're going to make a series with AI. Like, there's always this like, and then we know with some basic observation that by the time we're done making this, there's going to be changes in the toolkit. Do you already, do you feel that way about how I think most of us do, but do you look at this and already start to imagine the choices you might make, or maybe it's really about Adobe? I know that a lot of this is also about the choices that came with working with Adobe, but do you, knowing where technology is headed, even imagine for yourself, how would this film be different where things seem to be headed 6 months from now. Some of us are interacting with like the agentic model that Luma just released. Some of us are into what Cdance is capable of. I don't know, wherever that place that you see, like, I kind of want to do that. Are you already imagining how this film would have been made differently? And maybe I'll start with you, Taryn.
Um, yes and no. I always like to think that I myself and everyone else made the best decisions that we could make with the tools we had in the moment. That was the
Yeah.
best that we could have done. What were the lessons that were learned? Sure, there was many that I will always apply and sort of from a macro perspective to something. But each project is its own like living organism, and it's gonna find the way to come. Like sounds like very esoteric, but it's like it will find the way to sort of make its way into the world. And with these tools, you have more and more options. I'm really glad that like we had the one ecosystem that we could work within, and those were our constraints. Those were our borders, that we had to work within. So we didn't have all these unlimited possibilities to go to all these different models that kept, dropping when we were working. It's like, nope, this is what we have, and we're going to tell the story the best way we can, and lean into the strengths of the tools. And Firefly, like we couldn't have done the whale without like working with Firefly, because they hands down gave us the best iteration. So like moving forward, yes, there was a lot of things that I learned, but it's almost more about organization and the sort of workflow of like doing more prep beforehand. When you think, oh, you can just jump right into it because, oh, it's just AI and we can do it on the fly. No, it needs to prep just as much, as a regular feature that now has a new department. If you're doing the hybrid model. If you're not doing the hybrid model, that's different. I'm about to embark on a project where it is just generative AI. And so that will be a different workflow as well that I've never done because I've never worked just with the tools and no live actors.
Yeah, I hope I didn't frame that question that, like, is there anything you regret about it? I mean, I think I
No,
agree. At
yeah.
some point, each of these things are their own, like, tattoo of the moment of, like, what
Yeah.
was possible. It's just
It's also
interesting to
only
hear
it's also
how
only
we
about 2
project
months
forward.
ago, right?
Yeah.
As much as things change quickly, I think when we look at work that we did a year ago or 2 years ago in Gen AI, that's when I work with my partner James Jones on when Satire AI, and was work we did over 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I think it's much easier to look at that work and say, because it was so long ago, the tools have changed so substantially. Here, we're still in the window where, of course, they've changed, but not with the same curve as 2-3 years ago.
I think that
Yeah.
what's really frustrating for me is that the bottleneck to like the AI artist soaring is media management. The bottleneck is media management, is technical coordination of files, it's version control, it's like this really boring, unsexy, like old, organizational stuff. It's like the models are actually good enough, like for artists to actually start making breathtaking work. Like if the craft wasn't so impeded by like the technical stuff. And so I get frustrated when but like when's my new media management software coming out? You know what I mean? Like I don't need CDance 3, just can I have CDance 1.8 with a new media management tool, Um,
All roads lead to post-production, and, I think that was my first reaction as all this stuff was going off a year or 2 ago, is I'm like, whoever is really processing the post-production layer is where all the hard questions are being asked. I mean, I don't know, every now and then I see, like, somebody really successfully make a movie that is just one giant montage, and, like, there's no and I'm like, "That guy's that was beautiful." Like, wow, like, look at that, yeah, that really helps where I didn't have to keep up with anything consistent. But yeah, when you have characters that have the same voice and face from the beginning of your movie, and maybe you even experimented with different models to generate them, it starts to get unwieldy. But I think you're right, that the boring business will be made, and that person will be very wealthy, whoever's doing the media management, product. I mean, Joanna, just you mentioned Sundance. For a lot of people, it was sad that it was the last one in Park City. We're excited for Boulder. Um, just that unique purview that I always come to you with it, because you have such a broad view of where emergent media and filmmaking at this level has been. What was it? What was your takeaway of just this year, this film in that moment, like where we're already what 8 weeks away from it, so it seems like an eon has passed. But I mean, what is your sense of the place that we're all in right now? And even as you participated with filmmakers like Taryn and the team here, like does it feel like it's maturing? Does it feel like it's getting accepted? Does it feel like it's still got a long way to go? Like how do you feel?
I feel that it is, I don't know if it's, I would say the acceptance has increased a lot over where it was 4 years ago when I started working. Well, I mean, really, I started working, but in this in 11 years ago. But when I was at CAA working with AI in Hollywood, it was at that point it was either seen as inconsequential, and something that would not be relevant, and like, oh, that's a nice party trick type thing, or a huge threat. Those and the work that the work that those were more of the general sentiments. At that point, I would say 4 years ago, there were a few people that were very much early adopters and innovators, and I worked with a lot of them and to protect and maximize opportunities for the talent, as well as those who saw there would be opportunities in production, and I had the opportunity to work with a bunch of them. But those were very much a handful of people, I would say, in Hollywood at that moment. And now I did a presentation for a conference in Miami in January, and where I went through kind of like where we were 3-4 years ago and where we are today. And you see every major studio, lots of the cutting edge filmmakers looking at and now publicly saying that they're working with Gen AI one way or another. Certainly there are those who are saying absolutely not still, and they have every right to do that. The mantra for the Television Academy Toolkit series that I lead, and Fred and Min, you all have been a part of it, is it's optional to use AI in your work. It's not optional to learn about it. I think it will probably become less optional to use or not in the future, but it's still today it's an individual creative and individual creator and director's choice of how they want to create. But I would say certainly the acceptance has come a very long way, and I believe will continue to progress. I mean, Dragan
It's
gave
hard,
an
hard to
example.
ignore
He's
it.
working with Ron Howard as an example there, but there's so many examples like that. And obviously, the Netflix deal with Ben Affleck was a big moment. The Disney OpenAI moment was a really big moment, and obviously we've seen that reverse. So like many things, we'll probably see some movement forward and then some pullback, and continue to see that. And I do think that the conversation around organizations like CCAI, where filmmakers and creators and writers are saying, hey, we want to understand this better. And we want to, like, in some cases, we want to understand this better. We want to make sure that the economics are fair for those, that they align with our copyright law, and they're fair for those who've spent their lives being creative, and that there is still a sustainable economy. I think those are important conversations to be had. And I think it's also great that it's taken a long time for people to realize that those are important conversations to have, but to have them in an organized fashion. And we'll see where they all go.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I mentioned at the beginning, it feels like things are more organized now for these,
Yeah.
layers of advocacy or layers of concern having or layers of needing to learn more.
Yeah.
And I think just hopefully these spaces we're here for, we're trying to create, even questions you guys have for us
Yeah.
sometimes, for all of us.
Well, one thing I think that is always important to mention during this conversation is that AI is arriving on the scene during a time of great uncertainty and disruption in Hollywood, none of which was caused by AI, right? So we're still kind of working through, despite it being many years now, the disruption of distribution. And so all of between the pandemic, and then some external factors like the pandemic and fires and streaming and globalization, or, as we call it in LA, runaway production, and the techification of our industry and the consolidation of our industry, and more than anything, changing audience behaviors, due to social media, due to gaming, due to, I don't know, just the changes, generational changes, and both because of what is offered as well as just how people choose to engage with content. And I think those factors, those are the backgrounds and the factor and the environments that AI is arriving on the scene. And so depending on where you sit in Hollywood right now, if you're sitting in a place where you're comfortable and confident and getting a lot of work and have a lot going on, you're probably seeing AI as an opportunity and something to lean into and something to embrace. And then if you're like more fearful around everything that you've seen happening, 42,000 people, I think Adam Schiff said were laid off in the last year or so in Hollywood. And you're living that and you're seeing your friends and your family and you're worried about your bills and our social structures aren't what they used to be in this country right now. Then there's very real fears that people are feeling. And so I would love to see people being more encouraged to learn about the tools, as this organization and many others do, and help people look at what's happening from an informed point of view, rather than a fearful point of view.
Yeah, I think Danielle just mentioned in the chat, it's the best time in history to be creative and curious, which I think is interestingly said. And
Yeah.
I mean, we could
Thanks, Daniel.
do a whole section opening these industry issues. I think
Mhm.
I often think it's such a mix of emotions because it's simultaneously this thing that's creative. It makes us happy to do and experience. It's something that lives in
Yeah.
its own innocence of what it's in and of itself, but it's also a business. And there's
Mhm.
people whose mortgages and tuitions for their kids are on the line, and that comes
Yeah.
from stability and something
Exactly.
that is built with a totally different set of incentives than whether or not it was artistic and creative inherently. And then we're stuck in the middle as the people that are living with the choices that are being made for us with, frankly, increasingly giant companies that
Yeah.
have totally different incentives. And we just saw
Yeah.
Sora decide that this wasn't their problem anymore, because they want to go cure cancer or whatever that is more important to their compute.
Or work for
So
the
it's
Army.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, let's go down these rabbit holes together. But we're right at time. I mean, any final thoughts,
Well, I just want to
Taryn?
say the only thing about the K
Oh, sorry.
curve. It's about the K curve and kind of where people sit on that K curve, and we're seeing
Sure.
the K curve accelerate more than ever, and that's.
All right. Well, we should do a whole session with you about the K curve because I want to learn what that is. Joanna, let's just all own that I've been asking Joanna to be on Gen Talks for a long time. She's a friend of us, and she introduced us. We had to bring her in surreptitiously here, and I think we can all see that we deserve a whole session with you, Joanna.
I wanted to have something really awesome to talk about before I came, and to come with a great team, and that has been fulfilled. Also, I want to shout out Monica Monique, who originally introduced me to Taryn, so I definitely want to shout her. And I want to shout out Drigan and Maddie and I all went to the same college, but at different times and did not know each other. So we also have our little Northwestern connection on our team.
And our other two producers, Andrea Cott and Eric Wolford. Eric was our DP, but he was also a producer on it, and they were seminal to the project and got the live action and sort of the whole project and all the deliverables. So they were an amazing team. But Fred and Joanna, you brought up such an interesting point too, because of like just quickly the mass consolidation that's happening right now. It's sort of all the content sort of drives to the medium of like, that's why you see all this nostalgia and reboots, because they know that that's sort of like a safe type of content to produce, where we don't need that content anymore to get us into a new future. That's looking backwards. We need stories that look forward in a positive way. And so that's where I'm really bullish around AI tools, because it can move at the speed of culture, and it can be telling us and having people that are outliers. And that's where change comes from, are the outliers. And so now they have budgets because they have AI tools, and they are the ones that need to be telling these new stories that hopefully we can create this kind of networked effect around, because we are so fractured and siloed because of our social media, and this sort of hyper individualism and targeting and storytelling throughout history. It was the original anticipatory technology. It's what helped us move into the future. And so I really believe this is an opportunity right now. Look at how well Project Hail Mary just did. I mean, they're yearning for positive protopian type stories that are smart and nerdy and heartwarming and weird and original. And I'm just so happy stuff like that is at least showing that there's an appetite and a demand for that, because right now it's just about economics.
I think protopia, utopia, it's all a nice break from the dis. It seems like everybody likes to make dystopians. I don't know. But I honestly, Taryn, I'll just also say we would love to work with you directly. We've done these cool Gen Jams where sometimes we work with someone with your inspiration to kind of inspire a room. So please, since we're right next to each other in Venice right now,
Yeah,
maybe
I'd
a
love
cup
to.
of coffee
Thank you.
to have. But thank you. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but we're so grateful you joined us today.
Commit, Taryn,
Joanna,
commit.
thank you.
Oh, I'm committing. No, I love,
I
no,
look
I'm
for
all
agent
about
while you're talking.
collaborative storytelling. So I would love to help lead and connect. That'd be great.
Awesome. And I know there's a lot of different initiatives I can already imagine. Let's get that coffee. It would be my treat.
Perfect.
Julia, also grateful we were get to see you. I don't get to see you as often as I used to. You're a busy person for good
Rock star.
reason. So thank you for showing up today. Maddie's obviously just rock starring her way
Did Maddie
into
come? Did we
just
find
being
her?
the only topic of discussion we keep bringing up on this call because she's so great. But thank you all. Driggin, and again, so happy to see you join this team. Thanks everybody that tuned in. Thanks everybody for being
Thanks,
here.
Fred, for hosting us.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
man.
Fred.
Thanks,
Thanks,
appreciate
Fred.
the
All right.
team.
Thank you, Fred.
Yeah.